All right. Let me got a glass of tea to help soothe my throat. I've come off a bit of a cold, but I think I should be fine to read a little bit more of Revenge of the Sith. We're getting a decent chunk through the book. I mean, what are we up to? Chapter 6. We're on escaping the invisible hand at this point. And, oh, there's some good stuff in this one. Ooh, let's see. It's a long chapter, though. We'll see how that goes. Because I don't know how much stamina I've got today. But yeah, we've got up until the actual destruction of the invisible hand. And wow, that is a lot. See how it happens. Howdy, Monkey Man. Welcome. We're going to be reading Revenge of the Sith. I've got the deluxe edition here. And TikTok usually makes me have a product link, but they've run out of stock of both versions of Revenge of the Sith. So I simply can't, which is pretty rude. But we'll be starting that in just a couple of minutes. Always give a little bit of time for everyone to catch up. In the meantime, I've been reading some other Star Wars novels. Right now, I'm in a reread of one, but I'm rereading... Gosh, why is its name escaping me? The alternate sequel to A New Hope, if Empire didn't get greenlit. Splinter of the Mind's Eye. There we go. I'm rereading that in my spare time, but that one doesn't get a live. That was not good enough. Hello, kitty. We're gonna bring in the views for sure. Everyone loves little Calypso. Pop, pop. Star Wars has overstayed its welcome. Time to move on to a new epic. You know, I mean, there is something to be said about redoing the same old things over and over again. In most cases, I don't like it. As long as Star Wars is doing new stories, I kind of see it the same way. Like, I feel like Star Wars has kind of filled the role that, like, Lord of the Rings did. But the issue is everything in Star Wars is copyrighted. So I think that, you know, for as long as, like, we've had other fantasy stories that are very clearly lifts off of Lord of the Rings, I think you can still just have stuff that is in Star Wars without necessarily being the same couple of stories over and over again, you know. Just need new stories to tell within that, you know, stuff like Andor. Remember how we didn't think we needed something new and then Harry Potter came out? I don't know how old you think I am, but no, I don't. And I don't think that Harry Potter was necessarily something all that good either. I think there's a reason that, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm too harsh on Harry Potter these days. But the thing is that the closest you can point to is what, 20 years ago? I'm biased? In what way? Do I need to point to the Harry Potter box set I've got over on this shelf? What a ridiculous thing to say at the first outset of anyone saying, I don't know that that's a viable counter. Is, oh, you're biased. I don't know why, but you are. Yeah, I have a room of Star Wars stuff. I also have the full Harry Potter set on my shelf. I have the entire Percy Jackson history on my shelf. Let's see. You got a book that has all 3 books of the Revenge of the Sith series. Ooh, so now which one? Because there's 2 of those. Are you talking like the prequel trilogy novel that's like the 3 of them combined? Or you mean Labyrinth of Evil, Revenge of the Sith, and then Dark Lord? Because that's also sick. I think that's a very cool compendium, even though I still have not read Dark Lord. Although I bought an audiobook of it, so I'm going to get to it soon, because it's really ridiculous at this point that I have not read the full, you know, unofficial Dark Lord trilogy. How's it going, Alf? Okay, yeah, it is the Labyrinth of Evil. That's rad. I do think it's funny that it's, you know, James Luceno bookending the one Matthew Stover book in the middle. Like, I feel like there's something to be said about, like, it would have been neat if it were 3 different authors, but I can't help it that Luceno's that good. Star Wars needs accomplished writers. That is very true. I think that, you know, and they're always hiring, like, people who have some other books, but I think we just have so few authors that are, like, significant these days. You know, I guess, you know, Matthew Stover was never a household name either, but like it feels like there's so few people really making waves. Most of the ones that are getting hired are just like popular for genre fiction, which is fine, but I don't know. We need something more substantial for this series. Jason Solo versus Darth Bane. Probably, I think probably Jason. I feel like Jedi as a whole are stronger by that era. They seem to be capable of a lot more. You look at, especially once you get into Fate of the Jedi, they're achieving so much more. They keep hiring people with agendas is a hilarious sentence from someone who just said I was biased about something. What a ridiculous thing to say. Who's your favorite Star Wars character? Luke Skywalker, baby. The agenda is creating a good book. But yeah, Luke is my favorite. He hasn't always been. It was really as I got older that I started to appreciate Luke more. Uh, but he has been for years. Let's see. You think we'll ever get another trilogy discluding like not including the Rey trilogy? I don't even know if we're going to get the Rey trilogy. It seems like their production pipeline has completely stopped up. But I hope so. I think an Old Republic trilogy would be really cool. I think that if they did like a future set trilogy, that would be neat. You know, something towards like 100 years past. Hot take, but Ewoks aren't that cute. That is a hot take. I think that was the common opinion. I mean, no, even the people who hated them back in the 80s still said they were cute. Let's see. How do you recommend I go about reading Star Wars books? I recommend just find one that looks interesting and give it a shot. Um, to me, that's always the best route is just something that really captures your interest as opposed to just like the best way of doing it. You know, there are so many one-off books. If you like Darth Maul, Shadowhunter is a good way to go. If you like the Sith and their history, Darth Plagueis is a good one, or Darth Bane. Um, if you like Obi-Wan, check out Kenobi. It's fantastic. There are so many good like individual novels. I think that it's always best to start with those as opposed to like someone trying to dive in. Trying to read it in chronological order is not the way to go. No, I absolutely will stand by. Especially because if you read chronological order, the first book you read is one of the most panned, controversial books that a lot of people really dislike. That being, well, you know what? No, I was forgetting about one. Dawn of the Jedi is mixed. Never anything all too good said about it, but nothing too bad. The second one is Revan, and that one's bad. Oh, thank you for the follow, Lollipop. Let's see. The agenda is creating a good book. There's a High Republic character that's literally a rock. In 1977, people said this movie was dumb because it had a giant walking bear as his co-pilot. He can't even speak English. How is he supposed to fly a plane? How can everyone understand the walking bear? Just because you're not creative enough to understand a weird franchise doesn't make it bad. The crime boss is a slug? What stupid garbage is this? I don't know how you think it's different when you do it. Thank you, B, for the follow. I appreciate it. Darth Malgus is the coolest Sith. He is one of my favorites. Someone asked about my favorite Sith. Malgus is up there. Vader and Palpatine, obviously, they're the givens. But I'm also a big fan of Plagueis after the book. Let's see, you really finished the Darth Bane trilogy. Really like the third one as well. 1 over 3 over 2. That's about exactly my order. I would say, yeah. I don't know if 2 for me, it just ended so bleakly. I think it's a real, like, downer of a book. But it was really well written up to that point. So even those, like, it's one of those trilogy where it's like, well, one's got to be the worst, but they're all still really good. How's it going, Will? Have a good 2026 to you too, man. May the Force be with you. Let's see, you love the Dawn of the Jedi comics. You hope elements are referenced in the upcoming movies. I doubt they will be. Partially because those comics were pretty panned, and unfortunately I do have to say I myself am among the category that don't really like a lot of the stuff in them. I think my biggest issue, I've talked a lot about this with the Old Republic, is the aesthetic. Dawn of the Jedi looks near indistinguishable from the stuff being set in the future of the Star Wars galaxy. Like, you could put Cade Skywalker next to, what's his name, Zesh? I believe, X in Star Wars, which is edgy and silly, and they look like brothers. They could easily exist side by side in the same series, and yet they're supposed to be 20,000 years apart. They should have done something to set apart the old era. What about the High Republic? Because you heard you should also read the young adult books, but they don't spark interest. That's why I would recommend trying some other Star Wars books first. Once you're, feeling the vibes of a Star Wars book, once you've like dove in and are looking for new things, it's easier to say you're going to commit to a 20 book series. But the High Republic, yeah, you should read, at least the young adult novels. Saying they don't spark interest, like there's a lot of different ones, and there's a lot of varying quality. I shouldn't say a lot because there's really like maybe 2 or 3 books that I would say are not very good and that you could skip, or at least that I wouldn't necessarily tremendously recommend. But like Claudia Gray wrote a couple of young adult books that are fantastic. One of my favorite standalone books in the High Republic is Path of Deceit, which is a young adult, but it's very disconnected from some of the other stuff. I'd say the biggest thing is, you could certainly skip like the middle grade books. Those ones, they're usually cute, they're fun, but they're nothing to write home about. But the young adults have some genuinely very good books. Some of the best books in the High Republic are for young readers, just because like the only distinction between those and the adult books is like slightly less mature content, but Star Wars never gets that mature anyways. Fewer people are going to be brutally killed. There's going to be less overt discussion of like relations. High Republic, we're talking about Star Wars. Yeah, the High Republic book initiative. Gosh, well, I should get started on reading Revenge of the Sith, but yeah, you're actually really knowledgeable in this. Hell yeah. I mean, we're not talking about Star Wars too much. This was sort of the preamble, because I read a chapter of Revenge of the Sith live every week. But I've gotten carried away because it's so much fun talking about Star Wars. Let's see, where do you think the franchise goes from here? New or expanding on the past? I think both. I think there's enough room to move in both directions. You're 18, you get it. Do you have any behind the scenes or making of books? Not a lot. There are a handful that are, like I have some like ship compendiums and stuff like that, but overall I really focus on the novels. Which is your favorite lightsaber? Yours has always been Obi-Wan's Padawan lightsaber. I've never been a big fan of Obi-Wan's Padawan. I do like Obi-Wan's master lightsaber, I've talked a lot about I like lightsabers where the emitter sort of flares out. So Obi-Wan, Luke in Return of the Jedi, and any that kind of pull from that sort of aesthetic are my jam. You feel like they could really explode into the past and touch down on the Abeloth area. I mean, well, Abeloth only really becomes relevant once she's in the future. But I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the Celestials. I talked about Dawn of the Jedi a little bit ago. The amount of reliance that the old continuity put on the Mortis gods, to me, was a mistake. I don't know. I just never liked them all that much. I like the arc in the Clone Wars. I just like them as a strange oddity out in the size. Oh, I get you. You're saying Abeloth for the future, other stuff for the past. I get what you're saying. I think, you could definitely do things in the past and the future. I just don't know about Abeloth particularly myself. Let's see. Howdy, Josh. Do you think Revenge of the Sith is a good movie? Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it has enough strengths that it outweighs its weaknesses to say it's good, not great. There's the potential for a really great movie in there. And there are concepts in it that could be better if executed wildly differently. But I think as it is, the poor dialogue, the questionable acting, even from otherwise good actors, the cinematography that leaves nothing to really talk about, all those things result in it being like, it's good, but it could have been a lot better. And this is the a lot better it could have been. Oh man, I want to answer sequels or prequels, but I should get started. You know what? We'll say after that, we'll start on Revenge of the Sith, because we're up to Chapter 6. We're escaping from the Invisible Hand. But I'll talk about speaking of Abeloth, which comics is she in? I don't know which comics she appeared in. She may have been mentioned in the Dawn of the Jedi comics, but her main appearance is Fate of the Jedi, the novels. Have you played Jedi Survivor? I have, but I haven't finished them. Did you like the sequels? So, as I'm talking about honest opinion sequels or prequels, overall, I don't hate the sequels. I don't like Force Awakens because I feel it's reductive and I feel it damaged this trilogy. I really like The Last Jedi because I think it did as much as it could to undo the damages that The Force Awakens did, and then 9 is a mess. But I don't hate it. I think it's just a really sloppy movie. The prequels are, I think, like, again, very similar to Revenge of the Sith. There are good concepts in there, but it is just a very messy trilogy that George doesn't have the capability to do a lot of stuff as far as movie making. So overall, as a trilogy, I'd say that the prequels are better, but as movies, I'd say that 2 out of 3 sequels are better than any prequels. Because like Force Awakens, as much as I do dislike it, it's incredibly watchable. J.J. Abrams, I don't like his instincts as a writer. I think he made a lot of mistakes with the setup of the trilogy, but he's a very good director, and he can absolutely nail the tone. He can capture the fun of Star Wars in a way that not even George has done since A New Hope. It's JJ knows how to get the most emotional impact out of every scene, and that's why, you cheer when the Falcon's back, and why it hurts when, well, I was going to say when Han dies. That would hurt no matter what, but it's JJ absolutely knows how to capture the emotions he wants. I just think his writing decisions are way, way off the mark. You wish George would have let somebody else direct the prequels. Yeah. If Spielberg had done the prequels as George asked them to, it could have been great. And, they also did need a rewrite, but like it was well within the realm of possibility. You could have some really good stuff there. So yeah, overall, prequels over sequels as a trilogy, because it's much more cohesive. But yes, the sequels are just better made and directed. Rise of Skywalker is the only sequel movie that reaches the flaws of the prequels on a fundamental level, but they are overall like a more cohesive trilogy. Lucas asked Spielberg to direct the prequels. He did, or at least one of them. I'm not certain that he asked about like all 3, but yeah, he wanted Spielberg on board because Lucas only directed 2 of the originals, and the best one someone else did. So it would absolutely be a huge change. Would have been cool. He was asked. That's right. He was also asked for episode 6, which would also have been crazy. Because Steven Spielberg doing Ewoks, I could see turning out really well. He's got the gift for that kind of stuff. All right. Well, with that, we should dive into the reason we're here, which is Revenge of the Sith, Chapter 6. He only officially directed A New Hope of the OT. Did he not direct Jedi? Am I misremembering? All right. Chapter 6, Rescue. David Lynch, Return of the Jedi. Hell yeah. Anakin counted paces as he trotted along the turbolift shaft, Obi-Wan over his shoulder and Palpatine at his side. He'd reached 102, only a third of the way along the conning spire, when he felt the gravity begin to shift. Exactly the wrong way, changing the rest of the long shaft from ahead to down. He put out his free arm to stop the Chancellor. "This is a problem. Find something to hang on to while I get us out of here." One of the turbolift doors was nearby, seemingly lying on its side. Anakin's lightsaber found his hand and its sizzling blade burned open the door controls. But before he could even move aside the sparking wires, the gravitic vector lurched toward vertical, and he fell, skidding along the wall, free hand grabbing desperately at a loop of cable, catching it, hanging from it, and the turbolift doors opened. Inviting, safe, and mockingly out of reach, a meter above his outstretched arm, and his other arm was the only thing holding Obi-Wan above a 200-meter drop, down which his lightsaber's hand grip now clanked and clattered, fading toward infinity. For half a second, Anakin was actually glad Obi-Wan was unconscious, because he wasn't in the mood for another lecture about hanging onto his lightsaber right now. And that thought blew away and vanished because something had grabbed onto his leg. He looked down. It was Palpatine. The Chancellor hugged Anakin's ankle with improbable strength, peering fearfully into the darkness below. "Anakin, do something! You have to do something!" "I'm open to suggestions," he thought, but he said, "Don't panic. Just hang on." "I don't think I can." The Chancellor turned his anguished face upward imploringly. "Anakin, I'm slipping. Give me your hand. You have to give me your hand." "And drop Obi-Wan? Not in this millennium." "Don't panic," Anakin repeated. The Chancellor had clearly lost his head. "I can get us out of this." He wished he were as confident as he sounded. He had been counting on the artificial gravity to continue to swing until the shaft turned back into a hallway, but it seemed to have stopped where it was. This would be an especially lousy time for the generators to start working right. He fixed a measuring glance on the open lift doorway above. Perhaps the Force could give him enough of a boost to carry all three of them to safety. But that was an exceedingly large perhaps. "Obi-Wan, old buddy, old pal," he thought. "This would be a really good time to wake up." Obi-Wan Kenobi opened his eyes to find himself staring at what he strongly suspected was Anakin's butt. It looked like Anakin's butt. Well, his pants, anyway. Though it was thoroughly impossible for Obi-Wan to be certain, since he had never before had occasion to examine Anakin's butt upside down, which it currently appeared to be, nor from this rather uncomfortable close range. And how he might have arrived at this angle and this range was entirely baffling. He said, have I missed something?" "Hang on," he heard Anakin say. "We're in a bit of a situation here." So it was Anakin's butt after all. He supposed he might take a modicum of comfort in that. Looking up, he discovered Anakin's leg and his boots, and a somewhat astonishing close-up view of the Supreme Chancellor, as Palpatine seemingly balanced overhead, supported only by a white-knuckled death grip on Anakin's ankle. "Oh, hello, Chancellor," he said mildly. "Are you well?" The Chancellor cast a distressed glance over his shoulder. "I hope so." Obi-Wan followed the Chancellor's gaze. Above Palpatine rose a long vertical shaft, which was when he finally realized that he wasn't looking up at all. This must be what Anakin had meant by a bit of a situation. "Ah," Obi-Wan said. At least he was finally coming to understand where he stood. Well, lay. Hung. Whatever. "And Count Dooku?" Anakin said, "Dead." "Pity," Obi-Wan sighed. "Alive, he might have been a help to us." "Obi-Wan, not in this particular situation, granted, but nonetheless. Can we discuss this later? The ship's breaking apart." "Ah." A familiar electrosonic ferruwheep came thinly through someone's conlink. "Was that R2? What does he want?" Sorry, that's the wrong person, isn't it? "Was that R2? What does he want?" "I asked him to activate the elevator," Anakin said. From the distant darkness above came a clank, and a shirr, and a clunk, all of which evoked in Obi-Wan's still somewhat addled brain the image of turbolift brakes unlocking. The accuracy of his imagination was swiftly confirmed by a sudden downdraft that smelled strongly of burning oil, followed closely by the bottom of a turbolift pod hurtling down the shaft like a meteorite down a well. Obi-Wan said, "Oh." Let me real quick. Thank you, Chaosito and Magnus, for the follows. Oh, making some pyros. Hell yeah, enjoy. "It seemed like a good idea at the time. No need to get defensive." "R2?" Anakin shouted. "Shut it down!" "No time for that," Obi-Wan said. "Jump." "Jump?" Palpatine asked with a shaky laugh. "Don't you mean fall?" Actually, yes." "Anakin?" Anakin let go. They fell. And fell. The sides of the turbo shaft blurred. And fell some more, until the gravitic vector finally eased a couple of degrees, and they found themselves sliding along the side of the shaft, which was quickly turning into the bottom of the shaft, and the lift pod was still shrieking towards them faster than they could possibly run until Anakin finally got the comlink working and shouted, "R2, open the doors! All of them! All floors!" One door opened just as they skidded into it, and all three of them tumbled through. They landed in a heap on a turbolift lobby's opposite wall as the pod shot past overhead. They gradually managed to untangle themselves. All of your rescues so," Palpatine gasped breathlessly. "Entertaining?" "Oh, thank you for the galaxy, Christopher Robbins. Oh, I appreciate it. Very kind of you. Always glad to bring it in with Revenge of the Sith, some masterpiece. Oh, thank you for the follow, too." So let's see, are all of your rescues so entertaining? Obi-Wan gave Anakin a thoughtful frown. Anakin returned it with a shrug. Actually, now that you mention it, Obi-Wan said, yes. Anakin Anakin stared into the tangled masses of wreckage that littered the hangar bay, trying to pick out anything that still even resembled a ship. This place looked as if it had taken a direct hit. Wind howled against his back through the open hatchway, where Obi-Wan stood with Chancellor Palpatine, and scraps of debris whirled into the air, blown through space towards gaps in the scorched and buckled blast doors. None of those ships will get us anywhere, Palpatine shouted above the wind, and Anakin had to agree. What are we going to do? Anakin shook his head. He didn't know, and the Force wasn't offering any clues. Obi-Wan? How should I know? Obi-Wan said, bracing himself in the doorway, robe whipping in the wind. You're the hero, I'm just a master. Past Obi-Wan's shoulder, Anakin saw a cadre of super battle droids marching around a corner into the corridor. Master, behind you! Obi-Wan whirled, lightsaber flaring to meet a barrage of blaster bolts. Protect the Chancellor! And let you have all the fun? Anakin pulled the Chancellor into the hangar bay and pressed him against the wall beside the hatch. Stay under cover until we handle the droids. He was about to jump out beside Obi-Wan when he remembered that he had dropped his lightsaber down the turbo shaft. Fighting super battle droids without it would be a bit tricky, not to mention that Obi-Wan would never let him hear the end of it. Droids are not our only problem, Palpatine pointed across the hangar bay. Look! On the far side of the bay, masses of wreckage were shifting, sliding toward the wall against which Anakin and Palpatine stood. Then debris closer to them began to slide, followed by piles closer still. An invisible wave front was passing through the hangar bay. Behind it, the gravitic vector was rotated a full 90 degrees. Gravity shear. Anakin's jaw clenched. This just kept getting better and better. Well, thank you for the shares, Christopher Robbins. Appreciate it. He unspooled a length of his utility belt safety cable and pressed an end to Palpatine. The wind made it sing. Cinch this around your waist. Things are about to get a little wild. What's happening? The gravity generators have desynchronized. They'll tear the ship apart. Anakin grabbed one of the zero-G handles beside the hatchway, then leaned out into the firestorm of blaster bolts and saber flares and touched Obi-Wan's shoulder. Time to go! What? Explanation was obviated as the sheer front moved past them and the wall became the floor. Anakin grabbed the back of Obi-Wan's collar, but not to save him from falling. The torque of the gravity shear had buckled the blast doors, which were now overhead, and the hurricane of escaping air blasting from the corridor shaft blew the Jedi Master up through the hatch. Anakin dragged him out of the gale just as pieces of super battle droids began hurtling upward into the hangar like misfiring torpedoes. Some of the super battle droids were still intact enough to open fire as they flew past. Hang on to my belt, Obi-Wan shouted and spun his lightsaber through an intricate flurry to deflect bolt after bolt. Anakin could do nothing but hold him, braced against the gale. His grip on the zero-G handle was the only thing keeping him and Obi-Wan from being blown out into space and taking Palpatine with them. This is not the best plan we've ever had, he shouted. This was a plan? Palpatine sounded appalled. We'll make our way forward, Obi-Wan shouted. There are only droids back here. Once we hit live crew areas, there will be escape pods. Only droids back here echoed inside Anakin's head. Obi-Wan, wait, he cried. R2's still here somewhere. We can't leave him. He's probably been destroyed or blown into space. Obi-Wan deflected blaster bursts from the last two gale-blown droids. They tumbled up to the gap in the blast doors and vanished into the infinite void. Obi-Wan put away his lightsaber and fought his way back to a grip beside Anakin's. We can't afford the time to search for him. I'm sorry, Anakin. I know how much he meant to you. Anakin desperately fished out his comlink. R2! R2, come in! He shook it and shook it again. R2 couldn't have been destroyed. He just couldn't. R2, do you copy? Where are you? Anakin. Obi-Wan's hand was on his arm, and the Jedi Master leaned so close that his low tone could be heard over the rising gale. We must go. Being a Jedi means allowing things, even things we love, to pass out of our lives. Anakin shook the comlink again. R2! He couldn't just leave him. He couldn't, and he didn't exactly have an explanation. Not one he could ever give Obi-Wan, anyway. Let's see, I'll take a pause. This is the coolest live I came upon. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying. Have you read Crimson Empire? I have some. I never finished the run, but it's a cool one. And yeah, absolutely subscribe, TH. Give us a follow. Because we do this every Sunday at 10 a.m. And Chuck, spoiler, Anakin turns bad. Well, what's even the point of reading it now? Next, you'll tell me he kills a bunch of children. And thank you for all of the 2026s, Alf. I appreciate them. We're celebrating the new year in style with Revenge of the Sith. Hello, Missy. You want to read? You can't read. All right. There are so few things a Jedi ever owns. Even his lightsaber is less a possession than an expression of his identity. To be a Jedi is to renounce possessions, and Anakin had tried so hard, tried for so long, to do just that. Even on their wedding day, Anakin had had no devotion gift for his new wife. He didn't actually own anything. But love will find a way. He had brought something like a gift to her apartments in Theed, still a little shy with her, still overwhelmed by finding the feelings in her he'd so long felt himself, not knowing quite how to give her a gift which wasn't really a gift, nor was it his to give. Without anything of his own to give except his love, all he could bring her was a friend. I didn't have many friends when I was a kid, he'd told her, so I built one. And C-3PO had shuffled in behind him, gleaming as though he'd been plated with solid gold. Padme had lit up, her eyes gleaming, but she had at first tried to protest. I can't accept him, she'd said. I know how much he means to you. Anakin had only laughed. What use is a protocol droid to a Jedi? Even one as upgraded as 3PO. Anakin had packed his creation with so many extra circuits and subprograms and heuristic algorithms that the droid was practically human. I'm not giving him to you, he'd told her. He's not even really mine to give. When I built him, I was a slave, and everything I did belonged to Watto. Klieg Lars bought him along with my mother. Owen gave him back to me, but I'm a Jedi. I've renounced possessions. I guess that means he's free now. What I'm really doing is asking you to look after him for me. Look after him? Yes, maybe even give him a job. He's a little fussy, he'd admitted. And maybe I shouldn't have given him quite so much self-consciousness. He's a worrier. But he's very smart, and he might be a real help to a big-time diplomat. Like, say, a senator from Naboo. Padme had then extended her hand and graciously invited C-3PO to join her staff, because on Naboo, high-functioning droids were respected as thinking beings, and 3PO had been so flustered at being treated like a sentient creature that he'd been barely able to speak, beyond muttering something about hoping he might make himself useful, because after all he was fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. Then she had turned to Anakin and laid her soft, soft hand along his jawline to draw him down to kiss her. And that was all he had needed, all he had hoped for. He would give her everything he had, everything he was. And there had come another day, 2 years later, a day that had meant nearly as much to him as the day they had wed, the day he had finally passed his trials, the day he had become a Jedi Knight. As soon as circumstances allowed, he had slipped away, on his own now, no master over his shoulder, no one to monitor his comings and goings, so he could take himself to the vast Coruscant complex at 500 Republica, where Naboo's senior senator kept her spacious apartments. Let's see, give me 1 sec. I want to catch back up. Thank you for the follow, Ghost. Lazzy Guizon, what am I reading? Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover. It's a masterpiece. And welcome, Corbin. Oh, you didn't get a live notification. Have you joined, for anyone interested, I have a Discord page now that you can find in my bio. Boy, it took me a while to get to that one. But if you join the Discord, I try to announce every time I'm going live that I'll be live in, 5 to 10 minutes. Don't care what's your SSN. It's actually 7. It's a hand-me-down, very early. Are you excited for Mando Grogu? I am. Overall, I'm a little tentative about it, but I hope it's good. Your SSN is 1? Ooh, beat out Mr. Burns. Oh, thank you, I'm not certain how to pronounce that. Averagey? Well, thank you for the follow, however you say it. All right, let's continue. And he had then, finally, 2 years late, a devotion gift for her. He had then one thing that he truly owned, that he had earned, that he was not required to renounce, one gift he could give her to celebrate their love. The culmination of the ceremony of Jedi knighthood is the severing of the new Jedi Knight's Padawan braid, and it was this that he laid into Padme's trembling hand. One long, thin braid of his glossy hair. Such a little thing, of no value at all. Such a little thing that meant the galaxy to him. And she had kissed him then, and laid her soft cheek against his jaw, and she had whispered in his ear that she had something for him as well. Out from her closet had whirred R2-D2. Of course Anakin knew him. He had known him for years. The little droid was a decorated war hero himself, having saved Padme's life back when she had been Queen of Naboo. Not to mention helping the 9-year-old Anakin destroy the Trade Federation's droid control ship, breaking the blockade and saving the planet. The Royal Engineers of Naboo's aftermarket wizardry made their modified R units the most sought after in the galaxy. He'd tried to protest, but she had silenced him with a soft finger against his lips and a gentle smile and a whisper of, "After all, what does a politician need with an astromech?" "But I'm a Jedi. That's why I'm not giving him to you," she'd said with a smile. "I'm asking you to look after him. He's not really a gift. He's a friend." All this flashed through Anakin's mind in the stretching second before his comlink finally crackled to life with a familiar fwee-wee-oo, and his heart unclenched. "R2, where are you? Come on, we have to get out of here." High above, on the wall that was supposed to be the floor, the lid of a battered Durasteel storage locker shifted, pushed aside by a dome of silver and blue. The lid swung fully open, and R2-D2 righted itself, deployed its booster rockets, and floated out from the locker, heading for the far exit. Anakin gave Obi-Wan... Excuse me, madam. Let's fix that. Anakin gave Obi-Wan a fierce grin. Let someone he loves pass out of his life? Not likely. "What are we waiting for?" he said. "Let's go." Well, a little bit of foreshadowing there. Not likely to let anyone pass out of your life, are you, Annie? From Invisible Hand's bridge, the ship's spin made the vast curve of Coruscant's horizon appear to orbit the ship in a dizzying whirl. Each rotation also brought a view of the lazily tumbling wreckage of the conning spire, ripped from the ship and cast out of orbit by centripetal force as it made the long burning fall towards the planetary city's surface. General Grievous watched them both, while his droid circuitry ticked off the seconds remaining in the life of his ship. He had no fear for his own life. His specially designed escape module was pre-programmed to take him directly to a ship already primed for jump. Mere seconds after he sealed himself and the Chancellor within the module's heavily armored hull, they would be taken aboard the fleeing ship, which would then make a series of randomized microjumps to prevent being tracked before entering the final jump to the secret base on Utapau. But he was not willing to go without the Chancellor. This operation had cost the Confederacy dearly in ships and personnel. To leave empty-handed would be an even graver cost in prestige. Winning this war was more than a matter of propaganda. Much of the weakness of the Republic grew from its citizens' superstitious dread of the Separatists' seemingly inevitable victory, a dread cultivated and nourished by the CIS shadow feed that poisoned government propaganda on the HoloNet. The common masses of the Republic believed that the Republic was losing. To see the legendary Grievous himself beaten back and fleeing a battle would give them hope that the war might be won, and hope was simply not to be allowed. His built-in comlink buzzed in his left ear. He touched the sensor implant in the jaw of his mask. "Yes!" "The Jedi almost certainly escaped the conning spire, sir." The voice was that of one of his precious, custom-built IG-100 series Magna Guards. Prototype self-motivating humaniform combat droids designed, programmed, and armed specifically to fight Jedi. "We recovered a lightsaber from the base of the turbolift shaft before the spire tore free." "Copy that. Stand by for instructions." One long stride put Grievous next to the Nemoidian security officer. "Have you located them, or are you about to die?" The security officer's trembling finger pointed to a schematic of Invisible Hand's hangar deck, where a bright blip slid slowly through Bay 1. What is that? It's the Chancellor's beacon, sir. What? The Jedi never deactivated it. Why not? I can't actually. Idiots! He looked down at the cringing security officer, considering killing the fool just for taking so long to figure this out. The Nemoidian might as well have read Grievous's thought, spelled out across his bone-colored mask. If you hadn't, please recall my security console has been destroyed, and so I have been forced to reroute. Silence! Grievous gave a mental shrug. The fool would be dead or captured soon enough regardless. Order all combat droids to terminate their search algorithms and converge on the bridge. Wait, strike that. Leave the battle droids. Useless things, he muttered into his mask. A greater danger to us than to Jedi. Super battle droids and droidicas only. Do you understand? We will take no chances. As the security officer turned to his screens, Grievous again touched the sensor implant along the jaw of his mask. IG-101, sir. Assemble a team of super battle droids and droidicas, as many as you can gather, and report to the hangar deck. I'll give you the exact coordinates as soon as they are available. Yes, sir. You will find at least one Jedi, possibly two, in the company of Chancellor Palpatine, imprisoned in a ray shield. They are to be considered extremely dangerous. Disarm them and deliver them to the bridge. If they are so dangerous, perhaps we should execute them on the spot. No, my orders are clear that the Chancellor is not to be harmed, and the Jedi... The General's right hand slipped beneath his cape to stroke the array of lightsabers clipped there. The Jedi I will execute personally. Ooh. Do you think Jar Jar is a Sith god? I don't. It's a fun theory, but absolutely not. Let me see. I want to figure out how many pages am I in? How many more do we have to go? This is a very long chapter, so I may split it in half. This would be a good spot to split it, but... No, actually, you know what? It's only a couple more. We can keep moving. I thought it was longer. All right. Let me adjust this due to cat interference. Do you play Battlefront 2? I have, but not a lot. Do you do this every day? No, but I do it once a week. Sundays around 10 a.m. EST. So one chapter a week. And I've been terrible about uploading them, but I also have... I'm going to have the long-form video of each chapter posted to my YouTube channel. Never got the book, so this is nice to hear. Thanks. I'm glad. You should get at least this book. Strong recommend. It's so good. If you listen to all this, there will be lines that you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta go reread that section. I reread it constantly. It's the only book I have, like, tabbed with, little note tabs so that I can find my choice passages again. All right. A sheet of shimmering energy suddenly flared in front of them, blocking the corridor on the far side of the intersection they were trotting across, and Obi-Wan stopped so short that Anakin almost slammed into his back. He reached over and caught Palpatine by the arm. Careful, sir, he said low. Better not touch it till we know what it is. Obi-Wan unclipped his lightsaber, activated it, and cautiously extended its tip to touch the energy field. An explosive burst of power flared sparks and streaks in all directions, nearly knocking the weapon from his hands. Ray shield, he said, more to himself than to the others. We'll have to find a way around. But even as he spoke, another sheet shimmered into existence across the mouth of the corridor they'd just left, and two more sizzled into place to seal the corridors to either side. Lord, either side. They were boxed in, caught. Obi-Wan stood there for a second or two, blinking, then looked at Anakin and shook his head in disbelief. I thought we were smarter than this. Apparently not. The oldest trap in the book, and we walked right into it. Anakin felt as embarrassed as Obi-Wan looked. Well, you walked right into it. I was just trying to keep up. Oh, so now this is my fault. Anakin gave him a slightly wicked smile. Hey, you're the master. I'm just a hero. Joke some other time, Obi-Wan muttered. It's the dark side, the shadow on the Force. Our instincts still can't be trusted. Don't you feel it? The dark side was the last thing Anakin wanted to think about right now. Or, it could be that knock on the head, he offered. Obi-Wan didn't even smile. No, all our choices keep going awry. How could they even locate us so precisely? Something is definitely wrong here. Dooku's death should have lifted the shadow. If you've a taste for mysteries, Master Kenobi, Palpatine interrupted pointedly, perhaps you could solve the mystery of how we're going to escape. I want to take a pause there because I saw, is there a major difference in the books than in the movies? I think that passage gives a very good example of, no major differences. The general events are still what you remember from Revenge of the Sith, but the way that those things happen is dramatically different. The dialogue is all changed, Some lines are in common, but a lot of it is new. In the movie, Obi-Wan does say, how did this happen? We're smarter than this. And then they talk for a little bit, but they don't have this banter back and forth between Anakin and Obi-Wan. You don't have Anakin reflecting on how much he doesn't want to think about the dark side after just killing Dooku. You don't have Obi-Wan wondering, why has the Shroud of the Dark Side not lifted? And Chancellor Palpatine conspicuously interrupting to say, maybe we should talk about something else. All of these little moments and changed tone of scenes that really adds up to a tremendously different experience. This book is everything that the movie could have been. It's phenomenal. But beat by beat, if you describe the plot, yeah, it's generally the same as the movie. But a good example, Stover even talks about in one of his author's notes this is the deluxe edition, so it's got notes from the author about why he wrote things the way he did, what it was like writing it. And he's been asked a lot about, we're still on the Invisible Hand this much into the book, and people have asked him for years about why is it that much of the book when it's only 15 minutes in the movie? And in this he wrote I didn't know it was only going to be 15 minutes. I based this on the script, and in the script it's 40 pages. They just moved really quickly on film. So a little bit of different weighting to things too. All right. Obi-Wan nodded, scowling darkly at the ray shield box as though seeing it for the first time. After a moment, he took out his lightsaber again, ignited it, and sank its tip into the deck at his feet. The blade burned through the durasteel plate almost without resistance, and then flared and bucked and spat lightning as it hit a shield in place in a gap below the plate, and almost threw Obi-Wan into the annihilating energy of the ray shield behind him. No doubt in the ceiling as well. He looked at the others and sighed. Ideas? Perhaps, Palpatine said thoughtfully, as though the idea had only just occurred to him, we should simply surrender to General Grievous. With the death of Count Dooku, I'm sure that the two of you can... He cast a significant sidelong glance at Anakin. Negotiate our release. He's persistent, I'll give him that, Anakin thought. He caught himself smiling as he recalled discussing negotiation with Padme on Naboo before the war. He came back to the present when he realized that undertaking aggressive negotiations could prove embarrassing under his current lightsaber-challenged circumstances. I say, he put in slowly, patience. Patience? Obi-Wan lifted an eyebrow. That's a plan? You know what Master Yoda says. Patience you must have, until the mud settles and the water becomes clear. So let's wait. Obi-Wan looked skeptical. Wait. For the security patrol. A couple of droids will be along in a moment or two. They'll have to drop the ray shield to take us into custody. And then? Anakin shrugged cheerfully. And then we'll wipe them out. Brilliant as usual, Obi-Wan said dryly. What if they turn out to be destroyer droids? Or something worse? Oh, come on, Master. Worse than destroyers? Besides, security patrols are always those skinny, useless little battle droids. At that moment, 4 of those skinny, useless battle droids came marching toward them, one along each corridor, clanking along with blaster rifles leveled. One of them triggered one of its pre-programmed security commands. Hand over your weapons! The other 3 chimed in with enthusiastic barks of, Roger, Roger! And a round of spastic head bombing. See? Anakin said. No problem. Before Obi-Wan could reply, concealed doors in the corridor walls zipped suddenly aside. Through them rolled the massive bronzium wheels of destroyer droids, 2 into each corridor. The 8 destroyers unrolled themselves behind the battle droids, haloed by sparkling energy shields, twin blaster cannons targeting the two Jedi's chests. Obi-Wan sighed. You were saying... Okay, fine. It's the dark side, or something. Anakin rolled his eyes. I guess you're off the hook for the ray shield trap. Through those same doorways marched 16 super battle droids to back up the destroyers, their arm cannons raised to fire over the destroyers' shields. Behind the super battle droids came two droids of a type Anakin had never seen. He had an idea what they were, though, and he was not happy about it. Obi-Wan scowled at them as they approached. You're the expert, Anakin. What are those things? Remember what you were saying about worse than destroyers? Anakin said grimly. I think we're looking at them. They walked side by side, their gait easy and straightforward, almost as smooth as a human's. In fact, they could have been human. Humans who were 2 meters tall and made out of metal. They wore long, swirling cloaks that had once been white, but now were stained with smoke and what Anakin strongly suspected was blood. They walked with the cloaks thrown back over one shoulder, to clear their left arms, where they held some unfamiliar staff-like weapon about 2 meters long, something like the force pike of a Senate guard, but shorter, and with an odd-looking discharge blade at each end. They walked like they were made to fight, and they had clearly seen some battle. The chest plate of one bore a round, shallow crater, surrounded by a corona of scorch, a direct blaster hit that hadn't come close to penetrating. The other bore a scar from its cranial dome down through one dead photoreceptor, a scar that looked like it might have come from a lightsaber. This droid looked like it had fought a Jedi and survived. The Jedi, he guessed, hadn't. These two droids threaded between the super battle droids and destroyers, and casually shoved aside one battle droid hard enough that it slammed into the wall and collapsed into a sparking heap of metal. The one with the damaged photoreceptor pointed its staff at them, and the ray shields around them dropped. He said, "Hand over your weapons, Jedi." This definitely wasn't a pre-programmed security command. Anakin said softly, I saw an intel report on this. I think those are Grievous's personal bodyguard droids. Prototypes built to his specifications. He looked from Obi-Wan to Palpatine and back again. To fight Jedi. Ah, Obi-Wan said. Then, under the circumstances, I suppose we need a plan B. Anakin nodded at Palpatine. The Chancellor's idea is sounding pretty good right now. Obi-Wan nodded thoughtfully. Let's see, I'm going to take another moment there. Thank you for the rose, Don. And Avi, this is your bedtime story. Well, I'm glad. Let's see. When the Jedi Master turned away to offer his lightsaber to the bodyguard droid, Anakin leaned close to the Supreme Chancellor and murmured, "So you get your way after all." Palpatine answered with a slight, unreadable smile, "I frequently do." As super battle droids came forward with electrobinders for their wrists and a restraining bolt for R2-D2, Obi-Wan cast one frowning look back over his shoulder. "Oh, Anakin," he said with the sort of quiet, pained resignation that would be recognized instantly by any parent exhausted by a trouble-prone child. "Where is your lightsaber?" Anakin couldn't look at him. "It's not lost, if that's what you're thinking." This was the truth. Anakin could feel it in the Force, and he knew exactly where it was. No? No. Where is it, then? Can we talk about this later? Without your lightsaber, we may not have a later. I don't need a lecture, okay? How many times have we had this talk? Apparently one less time than we needed to. Anakin sighed. Obi-Wan could still make him feel about 9 years old. He gave a sullen nod towards one of the droid bodyguards. He's got it. He does? And how did this happen? I don't want to talk about it. Anakin, hey, he's got yours too. That's different. This weapon is your life, Obi-Wan. He did a credible enough Kenobi impression that Palpatine had to smother a snort. You must take care of it. Perhaps, Obi-Wan said, as the droids clicked the binders onto their wrists and led them all away. We should talk about this later. Anakin intoned severely, Without your lightsaber, you may not have a... All right. The Jedi Master surrendered with a rueful smile. You win. Anakin grinned at him. I'm sorry? What was that? He couldn't remember the last time he'd won an argument with Obi-Wan. Could you speak up a little? It's not very Jedi to gloat, Anakin. I'm not gloating, Master, he said with a sidelong glance at Palpatine. I'm just savoring the moment. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker for now. The Supreme Chancellor returns your look with a hint of a smile and a sliver of an approving nod, and for you, this tiny, trivial, comradely victory sparks a warmth and ease that relaxes the dragon grip of dread on your heart. Forget that you are captured. You and Obi-Wan have been captured before. Forget the deteriorating ship. Forget the Jedi-killing droids. You've faced worse. Forget General Grievous. What is he compared with Dooku? He can't even use the Force. So now, here, for you, the situation comes down to this. You are walking between the two best friends you have ever had, with your precious droid friend faithfully whirring after your heels, on your way to win the Clone Wars. What you have done, what happened in the General's quarters, and, more important, why it happened, is all burning away in Coruscant's atmosphere along with Dooku's decapitated corpse. Already, it seems as if it happened to somebody else, as if you were somebody else when you did it, and it seems as if that man, the dragon-haunted man with a furnace for a heart and a mind as cold as the surface of that dead star, had really only been an image reflected in Dooku's open, staring eyes. And by the time what's left of the conning spire crashes into the kilometers-thick crust of the city that is the surface of Coruscant, those dead eyes will have burned away, and the dragon will burn with them. And you, for the first time in your life, will truly be free. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker. For now. Oh man. How about that? God, the first person or the second person storyteller mode is such a good device in this. Putting you directly in Anakin's shoes, making you feel what Anakin feels, and giving you an exact look at what Anakin is thinking at the moment. Simply unmatched. But with that, that's the end of Chapter 6. That's the end of our reading for today. So, next chapter, we'll be seeing them meet with General Grievous. They'll get up to some shenanigans then, and I believe crash the Invisible Hand? Maybe not quite, but they more or less reach Coruscant soon, and I'm sure things are going to go great after that. But so let's see, there's only a handful of us left, so thank you everyone who's still here. Thank you everyone who's been here at any point, but I'm sure they had to step away. It's been a delight reading for you. I'll be back again Sunday at 10 in a week to read Chapter 7, and we'll keep making our way through the best Star Wars book of all time. So have a great rest of your day, and as always, may the Force be with you.